self-heal anything yourself, emotional, mental, and physical. All symptoms, including physical ones, are temporary. They are your body's voice shouting about unprocessed emotions. If you are done with making your symptoms permanent, then come to my website link underneath to find out how I can help you to release and rise. I'm Jenny Luscombe, a facilitator of healing and awakening. I point people towards the truth that we do actually have the power to own our own consciousness after all. I'm just about to do my show, Feeling is Healing, on Holistic Radio on Telegram. This happens every Monday, 5 till 6 p.m, where you can listen live and come and join in and ask questions or listen to the replay. I absolutely love my Holistic Radio family. I love doing my show. It's my passion. It's a beautiful example of win-win energy, therapeutic for me, therapeutic for you. Come and discover, explore, live, laugh, learn, listen, enjoy, and gratitude. Hello, this is Jenny Luscombe, and this is Feeling is Healing. And today we're going to be talking about processing paedophilia. So, yeah, this is not an easy one, and I wouldn't have come in the direction of this unless I had felt compelled. And there's loads of reasons why I'm talking about this. The main thing that's kind of pointed me in this direction for this show is because I went to see the Michael Jackson movie the other day. But I'm going to talk about that towards the end. So it triggered me in lots of ways, and it helped me understand a lot of things that I don't think are particularly being talked about out in the world by many people. It is being talked about, but not by many people. So yeah, we don't want to see it, and we don't want to feel it, and we don't want to understand it. But there's an isness about it. It's out in the world, and it seems like it must be time to move towards wanting to understand. So something that I see missing out in the world as the disclosure unfolds is hardly any discussion at all about what the root cause of this issue is. So we're obviously all so collectively and understandably stuck in horror and disgust and an inability to process the incomprehensible that we can't get beyond it. And it's not a place that anybody wants to get stuck. But as a collective, we kind of are. So maybe at this point, nobody actually knows what the root cause of this is, but we have to start somewhere, and we have to move towards trying to understand in order for something to happen next. Otherwise we're going to be stuck here forever. So for years I've been researching this topic, and I chose to take a difficult journey into understanding the root causes of paedophilia for lots of reasons and from lots of angles, as a therapist, a facilitator of healing, an ex-teacher and a parent and a citizen of the world, and as a victim myself of a one-off thing that happened when I was younger. So I've been surfacing a memory for quite a few years that I asked the universe to release to me as slowly as possible. So I've been getting pieces for quite a long time. And I've also witnessed lots of situations in my life from lots of different angles to help me understand what's really going on. And we can't heal anything until we know what's really going on. So I've got lots of realizations to share. And we need to have a collective healing. We need to have a collective movement of energy through what we're in. So we have to understand what's really happening here, and what has happened, and what created this, and how this is even possible. Otherwise, we just get stuck in the unprocessable, and we never land, and it just goes on, and then no one helps and nothing changes, because it is incomprehensible, and it is a loop that we're stuck in. So I would like to help with this loop. So I just want to suggest a pathway through, and that's what I sort of see my role as being, because I think that I have some understanding that maybe some of you might not. So it's never going to be okay that this is happening and that so many children have been and are being hurt and abused. But we have to see that there is a story of cause and effect here that we must hear, and we have to land in truth in order for us to move through it and to help others move through it, and for this to be prevented and to end forever so that we can protect our present and future generations. So as awakening people, we have an opportunity to be willing witnesses and to begin the transmutation of this darkness just by choosing to look and to expand our awareness on how this has come about and how we even got here. So, yeah, it's difficult to know where to start with this. So my main perspective of this is as a therapist, because, and I've talked a lot about the subconscious mind on my show, and if anybody here who's listened to my show regularly probably understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about trauma. That we basically suppress aspects of ourselves as children from birth to 7 years old that are disapproved of by the people that are keeping us alive. So from my perspective and from the things that I've looked at, I'd like to share what I think are the reasons for why people become sexually attracted to children. So the reason that I'm kind of placed to speak about this is because I am a victim of something that happened to me when I was a child, and I was sent away to a Catholic retreat with my sister against my will, where we were unaccompanied children, and we were the only children there. So that memory is still coming together for me. But yeah, I've helped a lot of clients as well who have been victims of this. And I have also helped people who are paedophiles who have never acted out and never will, never intend to, and they know that they won't. So do I believe that this is healable? Yes, 100%. But it's only healable if we can see it. So I feel like my role here is to just point at it and to just explain what I know about this. So also, previously, before I was into my therapies, I was an ex-teacher in a primary school in Liverpool, and it was a very transient population of kids. Like, we had many asylum seeker families that just moved through, and we didn't see them for long, and then they were gone. And you can totally see how children go missing in the system with the chaos and the things that are happening to people. And I saw lots and lots of situations where children seemed to just disappear, and I inquired about them and I never knew where they'd gone. I also witnessed loads of different things that happened with social services and how they handled things and how they didn't handle things. There was a lot of corruption and coercion and bullying and projection. I've also been a very close observer of a situation in my own family when a relative of my ex-husband was arrested for viewing child pornography. And this was a person who didn't act out and probably wouldn't ever. And obviously, because at the time, my daughter was little and this was happening in my family, she was seen as at risk by social services. So we had this whole thing went on where we thought we were going to be supported by social services to get through an incredibly stressful time, but actually they tried to implicate us. So yeah, I totally saw how they prey on vulnerable families when some shit happens in your family, and then they do everything they can to take you down. So I've been witness to that. I've also spoken to a lot of women who have had the exact same situation happen in their families, where they were nothing to do with any problem with the child. But yeah, in trying to free themselves from the suspicion of social services, they end up getting themselves in a mess. All sorts of things. Yeah, so I never would have chosen to go in this direction, but it seems that the universe gave me a million different angles to look at this. So I think I'm supposed to be talking about it. So from my perspective, this situation occurs in a person's life and consciousness when they have suppressed what it is to be a child in order to survive. So this is when people have been rejected to such a level in their childhood, when they were depending on their parents for survival, that they end up entirely rejecting themselves. So not just a little bit, not just in some ways, but completely. So if you imagine that kind of like vibe of innocence, that kind of bare feet on the grass, freedom, like running into the space, into the fields, and innocence, really, like you could define that as a lightness, like an alignment state, that childhood state of being worry-free, like a purity, where a child is uncompromised, like the state of openness that we all had before we were taken away from ourselves. So this unguarded kind of state of lightness. So this is what I'm referring to when I'm talking about innocence. So when people become sexually attracted to children, it's because they hurt so badly in their childhood that they suppressed their own innocence. And they had to grow up too fast. And what's happening with the subconscious mind when people become sexually attracted to children is that they're basically in this kind of like emotional starvation. And what the subconscious mind is trying to do is to help them reclaim their sense of freedom. So if a person isn't able to do that in a healthy way, which most people are, then they end up in a kind of like projection into their external. So the child is their externalized innocence that they're trying to reclaim. So I don't think that if you can fully understand what this is and what is going on, and that not everybody goes this way, then we can start to figure out what we can do and how we can help. So I don't think this is an incurable situation. I just don't agree with that perspective. I think as long as a paedophile connects with their own sense of innocence, or they move towards that, then they no longer need to connect with something external to them to satisfy that craving, i.e. a child. So this is about a chronic lack of freedom. And I know that a lot of paedophiles, if not probably the majority of them, do not understand it themselves. So the relative of my husband that, I interrogated over like a 2-week period because I needed to know that my child was safe. He said that he didn't understand it himself because, I was kind of like shaking from head to foot for like a period of about a fortnight, trying to ask all the right questions and to get everything straight in my head, like what happened, what didn't happen, But this person never had access to my daughter, so I knew that she was okay, but there were things that I had to understand and I had to ask. But it really struck me that he didn't understand it himself. So we cannot heal a thing that we don't understand. So we need a situation in the world where paedophiles understand it themselves, what they're in, and that we also understand what they're in. So the reality of this situation is that most people don't act this out. Most people who have this wound live in quiet desperation, never telling anyone. And if you just have a quick look at the global reporting laws, everywhere, where therapists have to report to authorities anybody who is a danger to other people, particularly children, whether they have or haven't acted it out, this hasn't protected children at all. It hasn't protected children that a lot of therapists refuse to work with paedophiles for a start, and that any paedophile who wanted to work on themselves and not go in the direction of hurting children, that they probably don't get involved in therapy because they worry about being reported, even if they haven't acted it out. So these global restrictions on reporting have prevented paedophiles from seeking therapy. So there's basically more paedophiles now than ever before, with no psychological or emotional support, just free in the world. And I see the situation very much the same way as war energy, the cycle of war, where on both sides people don't see, themselves in the people the other side of the fence. We have to be able to see ourselves in these people in order for this cycle to end, in my opinion. So when a paedophile is sexually attracted to children and they are acting that out, ironically, by trying to reclaim their lost innocence and their lost childhood by acting out with a child, they have recreated the exact same wound in the child that they were attempting to heal. So obviously, at the moment, we're looking at paedophiles as if they are monsters and that they are evil. And that's kind of like where most of us are shutting the door, because we can't handle it. And it makes sense, and it isn't wrong or bad to be landing there. It's just a stage. But we're perpetuating what we're looking at if we stick with they are monsters, they are evil, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that it isn't monstrous, because it is. But if we're seeing them like that, and in order for them to heal from this, they need to see themselves as not being monsters, and they need to see that seeing themselves that way is preventing their own healing and forcing them further and further into suppression, and then further and further into keeping children at risk, then the cycle will never stop. And I don't think the cycle will ever stop if we continue to punish paedophiles. And I'm not saying let them all off the hook at all. I'm not saying support paedophiles at all to do what they do. But I do think that we need to support paedophiles to not be paedophiles. So not everybody clearly is ready for this level of empathy. But if a paedophile wants to no longer be one, then they need to learn to reclaim their own innocence again. So this is something that I've known for a long time, and I've not really had the words to kind of speak it into the world, and until the other day when I went to see the Michael Jackson movie. So this is really interesting to me. I don't know where to start with it, really, because after the movie, which I found absolutely amazing, and it was very healing for me, actually. I cried all the way through it, and then I did go and watch it again with my daughter, and interestingly, I didn't cry at all. So it really helped me move a lot of emotion and triggers and stuff for me personally. And after the film, I kind of had a look at how people have taken the film and people reviewing it, and something that struck me, I noticed that the wokerati, the people like The Guardian, they're all kind of reporting on how it was too shiny and there were things left out and they didn't talk about the child abuse thing. And there's no evidence anywhere to suggest that Michael Jackson did anything that he was accused of, But I just thought that I would share with you the revelations that I had while I was watching the film. And yeah, there was a couple of things that I found really interesting. So I was kind of triggered by the film. And again, I was compelled to go and watch it. I didn't really know why. I'm listening to the universe a bit more and doing things that I'm getting insights about without understanding it, and getting the full picture kind of later on. And it's kind of like, sometimes you need something to trigger your subconscious in a certain way that you would never have got to yourself, And I have this with a client of mine, who he's a veteran and is stuck, finding it very difficult to feel. So he's learning to be triggered in the world and then to investigate why the trigger was there, because he finds it, for example, hard to cry at a family funeral, but he will cry at a dog video or something like that. And he now understands that the subconscious is triggering him so that he can cry in a socially acceptable setting, because he has limiting beliefs about men crying and all of that. So in a similar way, the film really triggered aspects for me that I hadn't surfaced. And actually, watching the film really helped me to process my own trauma. And it was really interesting. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was watching the young Michael in the film talking to his mum. And he said something to his mum that really hit me. Like, the film had kind of portrayed his loneliness and him getting beatings and controlled, and basically he was the star and he had to do lots of things he didn't want to do because he was basically, all the family's money was being made by him. And so he had an enormous amount of pressure on him as a small child. And there was a part in the film where his mum was saying, why don't you get some kids of your own age? Why don't we find you some children you can play with? Because he was expressing that he was lonely, and his only friends were his animals that he kept in his room, his snakes and his chimpanzee and his giraffe and his llama and like all of this craziness. So his animals were his friends, his books were his friends, but he didn't really have physical friends. And he said to his mum, like, other kids don't really see me as a real person. And, he had a point, because he was Michael Jackson and they just saw the performer. They just saw the performer on stage. They didn't see the real version of him. So he was stuck in this like parallel universe where he knew he was the real him, but no one could see him. And this is something that I experienced in childhood big time. And I still, when I'm around my family, feel like a ghost because I'm not in the same dimension as them. And I don't think I ever have been. And it's an incredibly difficult wound to heal when you don't feel recognized as a person. And I suddenly had this revelation because the film showed him looking at his Peter Pan book a lot. And then I realized, oh, right, okay, so when he had the nose job and everything, he was recreating his connection to Peter Pan and like the whole Neverland thing. And obviously Peter Pan was this elfin-like kind of creature with this turned-up nose and this pixie-like appearance. And that's who he spent the majority of his time in an imaginary world talking to. And so when he had his nose job, he actually said to the surgeon, I need to be perfect. My nose is too big. His big black African nose wasn't, what he saw perfection as. And he was like projecting a lot of his pain into this need for this surgery. So, yeah, he ended up with this appearance, which, a lot of people acknowledged didn't really suit him. And it wasn't fully understood. And I had this revelation while I was watching the film with what I understand about the nose, because I work spiritually with the body code, and metaphorically I know that the body is working with our subconscious mind, trying to help us understand why certain parts of our body, we focus on them, or we have disease or certain symptoms. So I realized he projected all of his wounds, not feeling recognized as a person and having to be someone else and perform. He projected all of that onto his nose because the nose represents recognition, and the nose is all about, like, there are people who have problems with sinuses and nosebleeds or anything to do with the nose, often when they just could not, whatever they did, they just could not be acknowledged. They couldn't be seen, they couldn't be heard, they couldn't be felt, they couldn't be experienced as they were experiencing themselves, like they were completely on their own in their own universe. So yeah, this is what was happening to him. And so I found that really interesting, because I was thinking, that's so interesting that it's being revealed to me right now while I'm watching this film, that that's the same wound. Like, I share that wound. So another thing that really struck me was his relationship with children that played out in a very public way. And I suddenly realized, of course, he was accused of pedophilia and all of that, because what I think he was doing was that he had that same wound, but he wasn't sexually attracted to children. He was finding other ways to process his wound. So he was finding other ways to reclaim his own lost childhood and his own sense of lost innocence. But he did this in a healthy way, not behind closed doors like Jimmy Savile. He did it in a healthy way through spending time with children, connecting with children, and respecting and honouring them. And apparently the FBI went through his life for a very long time, like I think it was about 10 years, and they found nothing. Like, there was no evidence to suggest that anything dark happened with children. And I think that he was some sort of messenger. Like, I think that he was a person that was just love. Like, he was connected to oneness. I think he probably came from a planet that was very different to this, maybe the polar opposite, where everything was oneness, you know. And he was actually showing us in full view the healthy way to process this wound. So to process the wound that we're stuck in now in the world, I think he was actually playing out the healthy way to reclaim a lost sense of self and a lost sense of childhood, a lost sense of innocence. I think that he was bringing the antidote to paedophilia to earth, and he did it in a very public way. And I don't know if anybody really fully understands this, what he was showing us. And obviously the powers that were, they couldn't have him process his lost childhood in a healthy way in public, so they projected their stuff onto him. And interestingly, the exact same time as, in parallel, the whole thing with Jimmy Savile was playing out. So Jimmy Savile was there visiting children in hospital, but so was Michael Jackson. Yeah, it's something I don't really know. I don't really know sort of what else to say, apart from, it just makes sense to me that there are millions and millions of us walking around with this wound. Like, I definitely have it. I definitely have this same wound that paedophiles have because of my Catholic childhood, and the level of separation and loneliness that I had as a child. I could have, you know, I could have been sexually attracted to children, but I'm not. You know, that isn't the direction that I've gone in. I've gone in the direction of inner child work for a long time. So because I've been doing inner child work all this time, I've been reclaiming my lost childhood and my lost innocence. And Michael Jackson was clearly working on himself. He understood things on a very deep level. There's a lot about him that isn't really out in the world about what was really happening. Like, for example, Litmus shared me a video the other day about his politics, about Palestine. He was a person that was connected to truth, I think. And he was just like trying to deal with life in the same way as all of us. But he was dealing with this very same wound, not in the way that Jimmy Savile was, but in a healthy way. And it's the antidote. So I think that what people who have paedophilia need to do, the most important thing that they need to do is to do inner child work and to go in that direction. And to play. So like this concept of play, that we always come back to it. We come back to it over and over again. And we've been programmed to not think, like we've been programmed, like we don't think that doing something that has no other purpose than that it's fun and that it feels good to do and to go towards, like dancing, do you know what I mean? Like dancing or playing games or whatever. Like we don't think that doing something that has no other purpose than to just enjoy it, we don't think it's important, right? And I remember thinking this when I was a child. I remember thinking, why are we all going towards doing the things that don't make us happy? I remember thinking that, like, when I left primary school and went to secondary school. I was like, what happened to all the paint? Like, what happened to all the kind of, like, fun and, like, talking amongst yourselves and just being natural and playing games and improvisation and role play, dressing up, I remember thinking, why is this going to make us, like, how is this going to make us happy? And so, like, our lives have been set up to not prioritize that and to not make happiness our priority. So we automatically don't go directly towards that. But what if going directly towards that is the antidote to everything? So what if paedophilia and this big fat mess that we're in right now as a collective, what if this is a big message from the universe that we need to just play and be like children? And that is literally the antithesis of all of this. Because this wound that many of us suppressed, because we weren't allowed to play and we couldn't be children and we weren't allowed to choose our own way of expressing into the world, the suppression of this is what externalizes that innocence outside of us that keeps us craving and then moving towards it in unhealthy ways. So I have the wound. I think Michael Jackson has that wound. I think a boatload of us have the wound. And probably the majority of people wouldn't admit to having that same wound that paedophiles have. And like, why do they become sexually attracted to children and then there are others of us who don't? I don't know. But maybe it's a deeper wound that they have. Maybe they are hurt in a much worse way than I have been hurt or anyone else has been hurt. So, like, as a therapist, I know that underneath hurt is hatred. And underneath hatred is innocence. So we lose touch with our innocence when we're hurt or afraid. And, like, obviously there's a gazillion agendas out there in the world. And I think, like, innocence in some ways, like what innocence really is, like there's an agenda sort of woven into this. Like we've been led to believe that there's some kind of naivety there and that it's weak or dysfunctional or weird, right? So Michael Jackson was projected onto as being this naive wacko, he was just honest, I think. I think he was just honest. And he felt a wound, and in an extremely natural way and a beautiful way, actually, he sat and listened to sick children in hospital talk about their dreams for hours in full view, listening and respecting and honouring and identifying with and healing and helping. And I don't see that as naivety. I see that as strength. It's not weakness. So this is the way that he chose to reconnect with the lightness and the worry-free purity that is the uncompromised self before all the bullshit happened, the state of openness, that unguarded state. That's what he was demonstrating, that I don't know if the world has picked up on, but that's the antidote to what we're in. And I know that. I just know it. And it's the same wound. And I didn't go in the direction of trying to reclaim my innocence through being sexually attracted to children. I did it through inner child work. And I never felt like that. And I don't think most people do. But the situation in the world is now kind of out of control, because it's way more common, this, than people want to see. And I just hope that by making this show, that it can help people who are struggling with paedophilia themselves, that know that they're never going to act out, to actually understand what they're in, and to know what they can do about it, and to know what it is that they lost, and to understand why it is that they feel that the way that they feel. And if any of those people can start to move towards healing in a responsible and healthy way, then I'm made up. Do you know what I mean? And if anybody out there can move towards dropping the story of these people are monsters and they're just evil, I just have never believed that there is just evil. I'm afraid, like everything starts somewhere, and nobody is born on this planet with the intention of going in that direction. Just like nobody comes to this planet with the intention of going mad in a school and killing everyone with a gun. Right? No one plans for that. So there's just cause and effect. So if understanding what is going on when someone is sexually attracted to children, if understanding that they're trying to reclaim the innocence that they lost because they were brutalized, if that helps anyone let go of the monster thing and the evil thing, so that we can actually figure something out about how we can start to help people who want help, who are, fearing being locked up just for having feelings that they haven't acted on. We need a quantum leap, and in order to have that quantum leap, we have to see what we're in. So all I'm really doing here is suggesting a pathway through, and at this point, the pathway through is to look and to become aware and to see the wound, and to ask ourselves, how am I like them? How am I seeing myself in those people? I think that's the answer. And I think that there's a reason why the universe played out Jimmy Savile and Michael Jackson at the exact same time. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to say for now. But yeah, thank you anybody. Thank you everybody for coming here and listening in on the live. Would anybody like to join in or comment or anything?
I've just unmuted everybody. If anybody wants to unmute and comment or ask a question, please feel free. I wasn't sure where you were going to be going with this when you first started it off at 5 o'clock, Jen, but it's been an interesting 40 minutes almost. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Thanks, Andy, for okaying it. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't going to cover this unless you thought it would be appropriate isn't really the word, but
Well, I kind of had an idea as to how you was going to approach it, and you kind of sort of did in the way that I thought that you might. So yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, thank you.
yeah. Oh, thanks, Andy. Anybody else like to join in or comment? And that's okay if you don't. Like, obviously, who wants to talk about this apart from me?
So hello, Jen. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Is that Ethan?
Yes, it is.
Hi. Thanks for joining in.
Yeah, not a problem. I think it's a very interesting topic you've chose to discuss today. I'm a prison officer, you see, so obviously I see a lot more of these people than most of the general public, and the questions that you're sort of asking and the topics that you're touching on in discussions like that are still discussions that we as staff, as an estate, still have an issue with, because there's still a significant amount of prison population that are occupied by prisoners convicted of a sexual offence, whether that be paedophilia or other sexual offences, if you will. And there's not really, there's some therapies that they can do and some courses that they offer within prison, like building choices plus and things like that from a psychological point of view. But there's not a really concrete sort of factual, reason or mechanism behind the way that some of the behaviours that these people have done, and some of it is absolutely horrific. But I think I'm very much on your side in terms of the fact of, there must be a reason why these people think the way that they think and feel the way that they feel, and it's gone on for far too long that
Yeah.
we have ridiculed that rather than actually wanting to find a solution.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And um, it's incredibly difficult to even begin to heal something like this when it's not understood. And like the problem that we've got in the world is that the subconscious mind isn't fully understood by the mainstream yet. There's plenty of people out in the alternative therapy world understanding how the subconscious mind works, why we do the things we do, what we can do about it, how we can reverse, even terminal illness, physical illness, mental illness, emotional issues. Like, we can do all of that, but in the mainstream, it's still not even agreed upon how to work with emotion, and a lot of the mainstream are actually dealing with emotion in the opposite way that it needs to be dealt with. So a topic as complex as this, it's kind of like when we're not even really fully there yet with how to help people at all with any emotional or mental issue, tackling this is incredibly difficult. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think as a species, we're quite well at healing what we can actually see, but when it turns to that which we cannot see, we're very in the early stages of what we understand in terms of that, like you just said,
Yeah.
whether that's sort of mental health, whether it's, you know, is it too far to call paedophilia an illness? Because, I'd be inclined to say it is.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
speak to 99% of the people, like you say, most of the general public, you say that to them and you get looked at like you're just as bad as they are, or like you're sympathising with them. And it's like, no, not at all.
Yeah.
You just got to, if it was, if someone had a broken leg, we'd know exactly what to do with it. But it's because we can't see that there's a problem. I think we're very much in our infancy in that regard.
Yeah, and that just makes so much sense. And like when I've looked at the lives of people that I know and have worked with and supported through therapy, and that it's obvious that it's the lives that people have led that have kind of led them to this. That it isn't, and it's never been a conscious intention to go in that direction. It just isn't. For example, the relative of my ex-husband, if you look at their childhood, you know, they had a very, very depressed mum the whole time that he was in childhood. They were a military family who moved around. He never got to make friends. They were always moving, moving, moving. Like he couldn't, it's arrested development. Like he couldn't develop as a person, you know. And much as I have, you know, incredibly strong empathy for him, I haven't seen him for years because I never wanted to see him again. And that's what I said at the time. And I didn't want him to ever come anywhere near me or my family. And that's still how the situation stands. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're all just where we are. But we have to see the cause and the effect in order to do anything. So we have to see that, like, this is only happening to people who didn't have any way to be a child. Like they missed out on a whole stage of development. And like nobody chooses that. So it just can't be. Once people can see the cause and effect, like, you have to start to move towards dropping this is punishable, like this is unforgivable. Like, is it unforgivable? You know, is it unforgivable to have been a child that was hurt and brutalized so badly that they never had their childhood, so they've ended up projecting it outwards? You know, I don't know how, if anybody fully could take that into the cells of their body, that they could still think that that person needed to be punished, and that problem that they have would then be suppressed further and further and further down into that person's body, so that it would never actually come up for air. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me from my perspective, you know. And it does feel like there are things that are unforgivable, and it is unforgivable, but at the same time it started somewhere, because unforgivable things happen to them. So I do just feel very strongly about that, and we have to see what we're in. We just have to see what we're in, and we have to get over our own triggers. So I think that thing when people look at you like you're mad, and they're like, what, you know, you're a supporter of paedophiles or whatever. Like, I don't support paedophilia, but I support humans. I support humans who come in my direction for healing, whoever they are, because they're coming in my direction for healing. Yeah, an incredibly difficult topic, but it just struck me through the Michael Jackson film the other day. It just seemed obvious to me what he was presenting to the world. Like, he's literally got the answer there for everyone. Like, we need to play. We need to find ways to reclaim our innocence, whatever that means to us personally, that are healthy. And I just think it's what the world doesn't know. It's what we didn't know that we didn't know. So yeah, does anybody else want to join in or say anything?
Jen, you got some fucking balls, woman.
I have. Thanks, Carly.
It's like there's topical conversation going here, banging backwards and forwards. There's loads that I would like to say, yet I'm not ready to say. Yeah, I just want to say, you know, there's going to be processes, obviously, and you know, that unfolding of where you've been. You know, my mum was instantly like, well, let's go and see that film, and I was like, wait, just wait, please. So I want to give appreciation for your your balls for
thanks,
fucking going, you know what, actually that's got to be broken down and
yeah,
broken through, because no, is my answer at the minute. Like, I can't, I'm there. So
Yeah.
I'm
Everybody's
going
just
to need to breathe on that, Jen, and go back, and I'm going to breathe for a fag, honey. So that's where I'm at. Just what it
yeah.
is.
Everyone is just where they are, but like we have to start to see that when someone's suggestion triggers us, like there's a reason why that's triggering us. Do you know what I mean? Like when we have a trigger, it's always because there's further information incoming, right? If we can all have a trigger in life, someone will say something will unfold, and we feel incredibly uncomfortable, right? That incredibly uncomfortable feeling is basically a text message from the universe. Important information incoming. Do you know what I mean?
I
Like,
hear you. I hear you.
yeah, like I wasn't directing that at you, Carly. I'm just
No.
kind of like,
Yes.
in order for us to sort of like break out of cycles, and I think it's like any cycle, really, like the cycle of war, the cycle of drug abuse, you know, the cycle of addiction, the cycle of abuse, like all of the cycles, like
Pain,
we
Jen.
are
Pain.
just like looping, aren't we? We're all just looping, so we have to figure out a way to sort of step out and into the light, like what's really happening here, you know. But yeah, go and see the film, Carly. I would recommend, and even to just have a bit of a bop to the music. Yeah, and I tell you what, like the kind of 80s backdrop, like the tat, you know, from the 80s, just looking around people's houses, the scenes in the background made me really triggered. Like it triggered every cell of my body, the cultural references, and yeah, it was just an amazing experience. And then I went to see it with my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and I experienced it completely differently because the first time I watched it, I moved through so much emotion, and then the second time I was just kind of quite deadpan. It was weird, yeah. So it definitely did me some good.
Complete, yeah. Right, okay, Jen, I'm going to go and smoke.
Yeah, bless you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Carly. Thanks for joining in. Anybody else?
No, it doesn't look like anybody else has got anything else extra to say. One thing that I will bring up, and that is the word paedophilia, is a generic term that has somehow become a thing. I don't know when it occurred, but sometime during my lifetime, this word paedophilia became common, and it became a generic umbrella term. And
Yeah.
the problem that I've seen is that the way I understand it is paedophilia is the sexual attraction to prepubescent children. And hebephilia is sexual attraction to post-pubescent children from, like, say, to the ages of 11 to 14, 15.
Yeah.
But we have an age of sexual consent in the UK at 15, not 15, 16, don't we?
Yeah.
So what I've seen and noticed is, let's just say a 16-year-old boy has a 14-year-old girlfriend and they have sex, and the girlfriend's parents find out. They scream, you know, oh, she's a child, she's a child. They label him then as a paedophile. Now, to everybody else, as soon as you hear the word paedophile, you automatically assume that you're referring that he has or is engaged with prepubescent children, or a prepubescent child. And I think that is a social thing that you've sort of kind of commented on, but not sort of broke it down, is this judgment that we socially put on different situations. Now, it could be, I mean, the other thing as well that popped in when you were mentioning Michael Jackson is that quite a lot of 60s singers, songs, were about 16-year-old girls.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Which
mixed
I've
messages.
always found, why have the music industry is full of suggestive things. It's like, why is a grown man in America singing about Sweet 16? You know, it's
Yeah.
he's not a 17-year-old lad singing about his one, you know, he's a year older than his girlfriend at 16. This is a grown man, you know,
Yeah.
that's fully matured, talking about a just post-pubescent girl.
Yeah.
And we find that socially acceptable. That's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, no, it's insane, Andy. Like, there's loads out there in the world that is mixed messages about all of this, and like, there's loads of stuff that I could say. I mean, like, you know, I actually think that children are sexual beings. Like, that you can't just go from being a child to being an adult without having any sexual feelings as a child. You don't just
No,
go from
there's a
off to
process
on.
involved,
Yeah,
isn't there?
like
And that's
children.
we have the 7-year process. We have the 7 years from birth to 7,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
we're developing. We have that innocence. We
yeah.
have then a growth then, which is what includes puberty from 7 to 14.
Mm,
And then from 14 to 21, and when we reach 21, that's when we've matured physically. Our bodies have matured, and they stop growing once they get to 21 on the whole, generally.
yeah. I
And
just think,
it's that middle process, isn't it? It's that middle
yeah,
section, 7 to
everything
14.
everything is in such a mess because you know, I have to say, I don't think that the majority of adults understand sex themselves in order to teach their own children about it. Like, we're in such a mess as a species in so many ways, you know, and like I don't think there is ever going to be an age where a child could consent or couldn't consent, like, because every human is so different. And you know, like, you hear paedophiles making excuses, and they liked it, or their body responded to it, or whatever. Like, a child's body can respond, but that doesn't mean that they liked it, or that they even understood it. Do you know what I mean? Or that they gave consent for it. Like, that there's so many kind of bombs in this topic, you know, waiting to go off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
there is. But there is a
it,
core fundamental belief that if your natural order of the world is to cause no loss, harm, or injury,
mm,
it doesn't matter whether you're a mass murderer, paedophile, hebephile, you know, whatever you are, you are there. If you've not been taught that, if you've not been taught the natural order of things in the sense of, you know, don't cause any loss, don't cause harm, don't cause injury,
yeah,
whatever your issues are, you find a workaround.
yeah. But I mean, think about it this way, Andy. Like, we are all like so clueless about this topic that, like, here's an example, right? Your kid might be there, it's Christmas, all the relatives are around, right? And then you go and kiss your auntie goodbye, whatever. And the kid's like, oh, do I have to? I don't want to kiss auntie goodbye, whatever. And then auntie's like, go on, it's Christmas, kiss them goodbye, go on. Like, forcing children into kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
an
there's lots of
embrace or a
scenarios. It doesn't have to be Christmas, it can be birthdays, it can be
yeah,
parties, it can be,
exactly.
you know, yeah,
Yeah. And then
dancing on the, you know, you're at a christening and you're at the party, or your wedding and
yeah,
you're
give them
at
a
the after party.
kiss. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I've seen that many times where you've got young kids at these events, which is perfectly natural, but they're then older members of the, I'm going to say audience, but older members of the group, the family group, the friends of the family, and everything else. And some of them will dance with the kids, and it's perfectly normal. You know, Auntie, you know, Mary's dancing with little Johnny, and little
yeah.
Mary's dancing with Uncle Fred, and
But
it's perfectly natural.
if you think about it, Andy, like, if you're forcing your child to not have any boundaries at all, and you're making it acceptable that when an adult expects you to kiss them or touch them or hug them, you have to do it, even when you don't want to. Like, that same parent who's put their child in that situation is probably going to still expect their child as an adult to have boundaries and to not kind of accept unwanted advances from other adults when they're in their adulthood. Like, they'd expect them to go, no, fuck off, if somebody was making an advance that they didn't want. But they wouldn't. They'd probably just go, oh, come on then, because they were taught that in their childhood. So, like, we're messing up our own kids' boundaries. We're messing up their head with what sex really is. We're, you know, for example,
again,
the religion that I was raised in, you know, as a Catholic, we're sex isn't good in any way. You know, it's presented
exactly.
to us.
Yeah,
It's,
very repressed in the Catholic community.
yeah,
And yet, contradictory to that is the fact that, you know, contraception is completely banned. You procreate and you mass produce as much as possible, purely to create more Catholics.
yeah, yeah. It's a horror show.
And that's not just within the Catholic community, that's within most religious communities. You know, procreate, have large families, so that we can expand and extend our cult.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say
unmuted.
something. Also, I found that maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, that children, say teenage children, were very flippant about blasting this word paedophile around without the definition of what it means, even knowing what it means, would refer to people in that way.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
And
Yeah.
I think, like, again, how many fucking layers are there of this?
Yeah, because there's been many attempts to normalize this. You know, there's an organization, I can't remember what they're called. Is it PIE, something like that? There was some sort of publication called Magpie that was actually written for people sexually attracted to minors who were justifying it. You know, saying things like the child liked it and all of that, and it can never, under any circumstances, be okay. It can never be okay. You know, in my opinion, like, and I think probably in the majority's opinion, it can never be okay that is an acceptable thing that can happen to a child who would be consenting or not consenting. You know, but
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? You can't consent as a child. That's the point.
no.
So there is absolutely no discussion there as a child. Let's just say let's take the 1 to 7 year old, but that can include up to 10 or 11-year-olds. But there is no consent. It's a misnomer, because the child cannot consent at all.
No.
Because of the innocence, because of the not knowing. So the problem isn't with the child, the problem's with the adult that is wanting to abuse the child. And that is the correct way of looking at it.
Society.
And this can go right up to sort of like the age of 10, 11, prepubescent. It then changes slightly. There's a slightly different perspective of post puberty female males, where like I was explaining earlier, where you've got, you could have a 17-year-old with a 16-year-old, and whilst the 16-year-old is still consenting, technically both of them are still children till they both reach 18.
Yeah, and it's clearly not the same thing, is it? You know, it's not the same thing.
But
two kids experimenting with each other as
the
like
male will get labelled a paedophile, like what Carla just said.
Yeah.
In the same way, it's structured very much led. This is a bit. It's led in a way to be socially pushed, as far as I'm concerned, to a degree.
There is a bit of that, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like it's a topic that needs to come up for air. It's like that there needs to be ways for people to process this, but it's like there are none, because It's like
there's
it's so kind of like pushed away from.
if
People
you're in
don't
a
want to
position
understand.
like you've described, Jen, where you're talking and discussing these situations with individuals, whether they have or they have not, and they're a victim or they're a perpetrator, etc. It's question the word paedophile. You know, are you referring to somebody that is sexually attracted to prepubescent children? Or are you referring to somebody who's actually sexually attracted to young adolescent adults, which is sort of like from 14, 15, 16 and above?
Yeah, I mean, you know,
So that's not paedophilia.
no, no, no. I mean, I'm talking about adults who are adults, you know, and children who are children. You know, I'm talking about the extreme situations that are out in the world. I mean, this is all mixed up with another topic that nobody wants to discuss, and that's like demonic possession, you know. Because the planet, we've been in such a fucked up mess like for such a long time, and so many people's childhoods have been brutal, and so many people suppress their child self, you know. It leaves people open to being hijacked and completely taken over. And it's like two terrible topics of conversation that no one wants to address, like all mixed together. That's what's happening in the world. No one wants to acknowledge demonic possession. No one wants to acknowledge, you know, that this is even possible, that people can even be doing this, you know. But like we all know that in order to heal something and to move through something, you have to see it. You have to see it. So I'm just trying to like get my torch out and shine my light on this from the angles that I've sort of experienced this in the world. But it's something that definitely needs to be talked about more so that it's not normalized, you know, that it isn't okay and that there isn't any way that it's ever okay to hurt children in this way. But we have to acknowledge why it's happening. We have to get to the bare bones. We have to get to the root of anything in order to pull the plug out of it. We have to see what the driver is. And we're in a situation where we don't want to see what's driving it. Nope, it's like nope, humanity's gone. Nope, everyone's kind of shut down, which is understandable. But
I
it's
think
just
the thing that's just popped into my head with you saying that is that the people that perpetrate these acts have clearly not been taught as children themselves the definitions or the boundaries of causing no harm. You know, don't cause harm, don't perpetrate harm on people. There seems to be a disconnect.
yeah.
Oh, it's okay to do this because I haven't been taught anything different. I haven't been given the tools to deal with whatever it is I'm dealing with. So I'm going to perpetrate whatever it is to satisfy my needs and desires.
Yeah. It's ultimately separation on steroids, isn't it? Like an extreme level of narcissism, which causes you to just not see the other person as a person, like to just be there prioritizing your own
Like a drug
craving.
addict.
Yeah, that's literally it. Yeah, it's an addiction. It's an extreme addiction that people don't understand. It's really sinister. You know, it is sinister and dark, and nobody wants to look at it. But it has to end. You know, we have to end this. So I just wanted to do this show as almost like a great big question mark for people, kind of personally, and yeah, I think if people can see that anyone who is in this circumstance is an extremely wounded person, like extremely wounded. And a lot of people would say beyond repair, but I never go there because I don't believe it. I think repair and healing is always possible. But it has to be that person.
Is that choice, Jen?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
But you know, there's kind of like in the world as it is, anybody that is suffering with this condition doesn't have a lot of opportunity to heal, because if they don't even understand themselves and they can't even go to a therapist without getting reported for having a feeling that they haven't acted on yet, you know, then this is being pushed further and further away from ever being solved.
That's something I'd never thought about with what you've just said there.
Yeah, this is really my whole point. You know, many of us are walking around with this same wound. Some of us reconcile it by doing inner child work or getting into therapy or reclaiming our innocence through creativity, or we find ways to
So
reclaim our sense of freedom and to reclaim
if
that.
somebody like you've just described, then let's just say person A, male A, 20 years old, goes to therapist and says to the therapist, I'm sexually attracted to prepubescent children.
Yeah.
Are you saying that then the therapist has to report them?
Yes, in a lot of places around the world. I mean, I was advised as an alternative therapist by the different people that I trained with. Basically, it's kind of standard if you think a person is a danger to themselves or other people, then you have to use your discretion whether or not to report them. Everyone is going to be different on where they stand with that. Like, you know, if a person went for therapy with a therapist who did seem to be a bit of a job's worth and wanted to do everything by the book, then yeah, they could get reported for having feelings that they haven't acted on yet, you know. And I don't think that's fair. If a person is having those
that
feelings,
would be like a gay person going to a therapist and saying, look, I'm a male and
yeah,
I'm attracted to other males.
yeah,
Not children,
especially,
I'm just saying male to
yeah,
male.
yeah.
Would you be reported for that?
I just think that it's down to the discretion of the human that is the therapist. But I do know that globally around the world it differs spectacularly depending on where you are. But I think that there are states in the United States where a therapist does have to report that they're working with somebody who is sexually attracted to minors, even if they haven't acted out. And even if they've referred themselves and they haven't come from any systems or which is intentionally pushing the problem deeper and deeper down and further away.
Because it makes people reluctant then to come forward to talk about these things and the feelings that they're having. So
yes, and what I'm trying to say in this show is that it's a common feeling, like the root cause, the wound here is a very, very common thing because we are in the emotional dark age, and generally we don't understand how to process emotion. We don't understand what we're in generally when it comes to emotional and mental issues. So most people on the planet don't understand inner child work and the benefit of that and excavating your consciousness and working on yourself. Like, it's still neat, isn't it? It's still neat. But you know, if a person was wanting to help themselves and prevent themselves from acting out, they would probably, in this day and age, be too terrified to do that. So,
but would they talk to Chat GPT? Maybe.
Probably.
Well, that brings in a whole new level, doesn't it, Carla? Because then,
It fucking does.
if you've got one of these artificial I know I've seen these things from Japan, where they've got these anime dolls that basically are childlike, and these anime fanatics buy them to have sex with them.
Somebody told me about a grief, like how they partner up with this avatar that's like a buddy to support you through your grief when you've lost somebody.
Yeah,
I've gone off on another tangent here.
yeah.
Apologies.
No,
So
but
I'm going to go back, Andy, and take myself back out and have the fag that I was trying to have all the time ago.
Well, there was a woman that's just declared that she wants to marry her AI avatar, hasn't she? Because she's got that emotionally involved. And maybe that's the future, Jen. Maybe this whole onset of AI technology and being able to have a conversation. But then again, would the AI have to report them?
Well, like, I just find it kind of like at this time and space that we're in, right, where humanity is struggling the most with a lack of connection and a lack of truth, right? Everyone's turning to AI for connection and truth. And it's like we need to reconnect with each other.
Well, it's
And it's just, it scares the shit out of me what's happening. It like, where is it going? Where is it going?
Where is it going to go? Yeah, but it's like, because I've sat here and I have contemplated the idea of AI robots, and you get this, tall, long-haired, blonde-haired, busty android that's artificially linked to your Wi-Fi router, that you can have an interaction with, and you can go out and come in, and she'll jump up and say hi, and you've got this perfect partner that never whinges, or unless you program it to, but never whinges, never moans, never complains, does exactly what you want, or not. And that is being depicted in sci-fi films over and over. That that is potentially where, as humanity, we become less, like you just said, Jen. We become disconnected from each other, and we become immersed in this artificial world.
Yeah. Well, I think that is the split thing that people talk about, and I think this dimensional shift is like definitely happening, and people have sort of misunderstood it and thought some of us are going to go this way and some of us are going to go that way or whatever. We're still all going to be living side by side, but some of us are going to be in that world and some of us are going to be in the other world. Yeah, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. It's so polar.
So
But yeah, I don't know where that can go. Like how that would people be able to be happy living like that? Like I just don't know.
idea. I don't know.
I just don't know.
But going back to your paedophilia thing, what would be the social acceptance then of a childlike android with a paedophile, that the paedophile can then interact with the android in a satisfying way? I don't know. I can't think of a better way of putting it than that, without going down a whole
Yeah,
host
I don't
of
know.
terms.
I don't know.
Would that become socially acceptable, do you think, then? If somebody does have paedophilia, right, let's just nail this on the head. So someone's got paedophilia, let's say a 20-year-old lad, bloke, whatever you want to call him, he's an adult, he's 20 years old, he's sexually attracted to prepubescent children, so before the age of 11. Would it become socially acceptable for him to have an android, an AI android, that he can have sexual relations with?
I just don't know. I can quite imagine that a lot of people will go that way. Yeah. But, I don't know if these people were given the opportunity to understand themselves, which I think probably the majority of them don't, because they were the ones that suppressed their own selves, right? They didn't want to see all that stuff. That's why they suppressed their childhood. Like, if they understood what they were in, maybe they would choose to go in the direction of therapy so that they didn't have this problem. Or that's just too hard for them to do, so they'll go in the direction of just
But
playing out the wound.
that
Yeah,
goes
I don't know.
back then
But in
to
a deeper
them
way.
being brought up in a scenario or in an environment of cultured help, deal with your emotions. As a child, they're born, and then as they grow through their development up to 21, they are taught how to deal with their emotions, which again, quite a lot of the times, as even now, millennials, post-millennial people that are growing up now that become in 2025, they've not really been taught to socially accept and understand their personal emotions and how to deal with them and how to control them or to manifest them or to deal with them. Because we're just simply not taught how to do that, are we?
No, and we weren't, because they wanted us all sick.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
and confused.
yeah, I mean, the the whole situation with mental health and emotional health, it's just off the scale and out of control. It's completely out of control, because the people that are kind of well established in the therapy world that are doing mainstream therapies, and not all of them, obviously, like I can't just make a blanket claim, but many people, I mean, people who are working as psychiatrists in the systems and, doctors, like, they just don't understand what mental illness is, what emotional issues are, because of the millions of different programs that have been placed into society to take us all
And
away
that's
from us.
the other thing
You
as
know,
well that we've done as a society. What we've also done is, I think it started in the 90s, where we've implemented, rather than having mental asylums to sort of brush under the carpet all those mentally disturbed folk out there, rather than sending them to an asylum to associate with other mentally disturbed folk, they decided it was getting too much, and they was going to reverse it, and empty the mental asylums and call it care in the community, where the mentally challenged people that would normally have been in an asylum are out there living amongst other folk that don't pose the same kind of threat. But yet we as a society haven't accepted that this has happened, and we still treat everybody as the same like we used to do 20, 30, 40 years ago.
yeah,
We haven't sort of, that penny hasn't dropped, that there are people living in and around us and amongst us that would traditionally have been locked up, literally.
yeah. I don't know where any of it is going. I really don't.
It's
I really
crazy,
don't.
isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot out there.
Because
Yeah,
like
I think you've triggered quite a good topic. It was quite a like a ooh. Jen's going to talk about paedophilia, right? Okay. And
I mean, I've got quite, like, I am going to make a bold claim now, right? I just think that emotional processing is the key to pretty much everything. I think it's the key to physical illness. I think it's the key to
yeah,
paedophilia. I
I
think it's the
agree.
key. I think it's the key to the majority of epidemics around the world. Like, I think it's the key to social immobility and things like that. Like people getting stuck in ghettos. Do you know what I mean? Lack of movement. I think if people could learn to understand emotion and that they actually are powerful enough to be processing their own emotion, like if they were shown how and why and shown what they're in and what's happened to them, we could solve every problem, every single problem, every problem.
That sounds lovely. Jen,
Yeah.
I agree on that note. That my brain is is clogging. Oh, yes.
The little blue circles going round and round, isn't it, Carly?
I think he's shaking the head top.
I think that the problem is that we clump together emotionally compromised individuals with autonomous individuals that are going to be whatever they're going to be, regardless of their emotions. And we're clumping them all together, and those autonomous individuals that will be what they're going to be, regardless of their emotional confines, are going to exist. But because we clump them with the 99% of the others that are similar but can be emotionally treated, they get lost in it.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm saying that is I recently watched a short TV series called Mind Hunters. I don't know if you've come across that one yet. I don't know how old it is. I don't know when it was made, but it was the story of how the behavioral analysis unit at the FBI, how it first became a thing, where one guy said, look, we've got these mass murderers in prison. Nobody ever interviews them. Nobody ever talks to them. Why don't we talk to them and find out what makes them tick so that we can prevent or track down future perpetrators? And it was like that the resistance to that at that time was phenomenal. And that's just made me think of that, is that there are always going to be those types of individuals that are going to go out there and mass murder. They're going to exist. But what you don't do is you don't clump together all them other individuals that are emotionally compromised, that they've found themselves in a situation where they've killed somebody, or they've killed a family, or they've cracked, they've flipped, they've come back from war, they've got, post-traumatic stress disorder, whatever it is, they've got some kind of mental health issue. What we shouldn't be doing is clumping them all together from one extreme to the other and calling them all the same.
Yeah. We can't keep going with that. Like, everybody's different, aren't they? I mean, like, I see so many very similar threads in what we're in. Like, for example, when I was a teacher, I worked with dyslexic children and children that weren't picking up reading and writing in the class, and I'd take them out and I'd teach them to read in 12 weeks, right? And I did loads of research then about because the literacy rates in the school were very low, because we had like a big population of children that had English as an additional language and all of that, right? And I did some research about what happens to children who don't learn to read and write by the time they're in year 6, and then they go off to secondary school. And one of my colleagues had followed a couple of kids as they'd left the school to kind of see what happened to them and stuff. And yeah, like, if you can't read and write and you're a kid and you come from a family like that, and maybe there's other problems in the family or whatever, you do end up like selling drugs on the street or whatever. And the majority of people actually in prison have literacy and numeracy problems, basic skill problems, so people who fall into crime and stuff as a result of not ever getting it at school, like not being seen and picked up by the school, and not being helped to like reach their potential or whatever, like, is it then their fault that they end up falling into crime at a later date? It was something like 85% of prisoners have very low literacy rates. And like, if that's the cause of their life of crime, like, is it fair that they're being punished because they didn't have the opportunity at school to learn to read? So like because I'm truth, I'm like double truth. I've got double truth in my gene keys. I can't not go back and see how things happened for people. And I think the same goes for people who end up in a life where they're sexually attracted to children. They never set out in life to get to do that, to be that. That isn't the way that anyone would choose. Like it's the result of pain that wasn't pain that they'd caused. It's a cycle. So I just think when you're in a cycle, you have to see the cycle. You have to see the cycle. And then you can somehow step out of the cycle. But you can't step out of the cycle until you've fully seen it. I don't know how long it will take us, but at least we've made a start.
It'll take forever if we don't do what you've done today and start opening up a discussion about it. As hard as it might be, we have to talk about these things. So yeah, and like I said earlier on, I wasn't sure where you was going to go with this or how you was going to spin it out. But yeah, you've done a great job in opening or cracking the egg, as it were. Discussion.
I think what's making sense to me right now is, in a way, I didn't have any choice. Most people in the world out there who don't want to look at this, they're choosing not to look because it's unpalatable and it's not a thing that they're choosing to go towards, right? I didn't choose to go towards this, but I had to because I'm a victim of this. It's happened in my family. I worked in the systems for a long time and I saw lots and lots of things happen. So it's been unavoidable, this topic for me. Like, it's been presented to me. So I've had to get over myself and I've had to go in the direction of understanding it because I had to understand it. I couldn't have gone through all of that stuff without asking questions. So it's probably the ones of us that are forced into the situation that we have to look at this, that the cycle will be broken, hopefully.
Break the mold.
So yeah,
it was broken. Open.
But yeah, thanks for your lady balls comment, Carly. Like, it always makes me laugh. Lady balls.
Well, I didn't call them ginger balls, but I did say you got fuck them. We got some balls, girl.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, we've come up to 6:30 now, so we've done an hour and a half. If do you want to wrap it up, or do you want to continue? It's entirely up to you. Morgan messaged me earlier. She's not going to do her show this evening. She's got other things that she needs to attend to. So feel free to continue if you wish, or feel free to wrap it up. I think I've played the host with you and tried to put questions forward that I think some people or most people would try and ask or interject with. So I hope I've played my role well. But yeah, no, it's been great, Jen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I think I will wrap it up. And I haven't really got much else to say, but I just think that it's a conversation that needs to be started, and it's already being started out in the world. But thank you for letting me speak about it, and I hope it's helped people out there. Hope it's helped you or other people that you know, or just helped you to expand your mind a bit more or whatever. But yeah, it's nice to have made a start. All we can do is make a start, really, can't we? Yeah. But thanks everybody for listening, and I'll see you next week. Lots of love.
Thank you so much for listening and watching. If you got inspired, then I would be so grateful for you clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, commenting underneath, and sharing with someone you think it might help. And if there is something that you are personally working on, that you are finding it hard, then ask under the video. Let's start a conversation that others can also benefit from. What have you tried that's worked? What have you tried that hasn't? Self-healing is the way, and it is mainstreaming. Let's help each other. Lots of love. I look forward to seeing you here again.